Well, the United Nations says over 400,000 people have been displaced by the ongoing conflict. The body adds that the refugee numbers are expected to intensify in coming days, which could potentially fuel a humanitarian crisis. To unpack this further, we're joined by United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, spokesperson Buchiza Mseteka. Mr. Mseteka, good evening to you, and thank you so much for your time tonight. Firstly, let's just talk about the impending crisis, right? Because it's all pointing to what many are describing as a humanitarian crisis in the making. When it comes to situations of this nature, is there a particular window that you as organizations that deal with these kind of matters all the time would be working within and hoping that there would be some form of resolution within before it does become an entrenched humanitarian crisis?
Thank you very much, Kathy. I mean, for a start, I should let you know, as you probably already aware, that the situation in Ukraine is indeed very fluid. It's changing by the hour. And clearly, there have been significant displacements inside the country as civilians continue to flee for safety. People are displaced internally. Many more are fleeing across the borders into neighboring countries. And I can tell you that the rapidity of this emergency by far surpasses anything that UNHCR has dealt with for many, many years. Now, coming to us, we are trying to keep, as UNHCR, operations running in Ukraine and organizing reception points in the western part of the country, as well as in neighboring countries, where we are working around the clock, ramping up our response that includes providing assistance to all the people who are displaced and those who are crossing. And as I speak to you, we are preparing tomorrow to start airlifts of supplies into Moldova, where some of the refugees, many of them actually have also fled into. So our focus is on the humanitarian angle to make sure that the refugees are all assisted as quickly and as timely as possible.
When we look at what is happening at the borders, there are, of course, concerns about the way in which some are being treated, particularly Black and Asian people that are trying to flee Ukraine. As the United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, what do you understand to be the situation there?
We are aware, Kathy, of those reports that you mentioned, and we are concerned as UNHCR about cases of racial profiling. Irrespective, our view is that irrespective of nationality and race, people seeking protection should be allowed to seek safety and to leave the country. So we are, most of the people who are affected that you call people are being profiled are foreign students. You've got migrant labor who are in Ukraine. You've got some refugees who are, and asylum seekers who are resided in Ukraine. Now, we are following up as UNHCR with authorities in neighboring countries to sensitize them that asylum should be available to all. It is imperative that states keep their borders open to people in need of safety, regardless of their nationality or race. So we're following up on this matter, on these reports that you allude to, of people being blocked from getting on trains in Ukraine as they try to leave. So I should emphasize once again that irrespective of nationality and race, our position as UNHCR is that people seeking protection should be allowed to seek safety and to leave the country.
We heard earlier from the United Nations Antonio Guterres, who was speaking about the need to increase aid, and he was pledging his own organization's money to help and assist the humanitarian issue that's unfolding there. When it comes to, again, situations of this nature, what are the most immediate interventions that are required from an aid perspective?
Obviously, the immediate interventions are relief that we need to provide to those who are being displaced and to those who are fleeing into neighboring countries. And in this regard, UNHCR has prepositioned stocks of relief items in various locations across Ukraine and in the neighboring countries. And we are ready to stay in Ukraine and in the neighboring countries to deliver this assistance. We are providing relief, including blankets, sleeping mats, family tents, sleeping bags, and all sorts of other items, solar lamps, to the displaced people and to those fleeing the conflict into the neighboring countries. However, security and humanitarian access are major challenges for us. As you know, in a conflict like this one in Ukraine, movements are restricted, but we are doing our best to ensure that these stocks of relief items are delivered as speedily as possible to those in need.
And for those who do manage to make their way across the borders, particularly those who are not necessarily from Europe, do you foresee a situation where they may struggle to get back to their home countries? And I'll bring it home to, let's say, the South Africans that are still many trying to make their way out of that country.
I think our appeal as UNHCR is to governments in the neighboring countries surrounding Ukraine to assist everybody, as I said, regardless of nationality or race, whether it's in terms of receiving relief, whether it's passage to safety. That is our appeal, that everybody be treated humanely and with dignity and with equality, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what race they are. That is our appeal, and we hope that that appeal is heeded by governments in the neighboring countries so that help can be afforded to everybody who has been caught up in this very unfortunate situation.
United Nations High Commissioner for Refugees, Bushiza Mseteka, let me thank you for your time tonight.